I always start off working with my customers early in our relationship, and then 3, 6, 9 months, forever, I end with this point. If the sale is won or lost in these 7 critical success factors, in this order, and there's no shortcutting this, there is no finagling this, and number 1 is the absolute most important. So number 1 is identify and cultivate all members of the decision-making team. And I use the term business, user, financial, and final approver. And what that means is that in every sales cycle, we tend to start off, if we're calling high, we tend to start off with someone high in the organization that could be a final approver. Or if the lead comes to us, and I'll say in greater than 80% of the time that I see sales in our environment, it usually starts off with a user or a technical resource on the customer side that has very little buying authority. And in many, many cases, we get blocked and we spend a long, long time selling to that technical user having, I see you're nodding your head. Is that from pain?
It's from understanding, wisdom, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
I can tell you the single biggest training hurdle that I take customers over is the idea that that technical decision maker is not going to make a decision to buy or not buy your product. And we all believe that. We all spend the majority of our time doing that. Yes, we have to technically justify that it can do it, that our product can do what they want. But in almost every case, that technical resource at the customer site is completely out of touch with the business side of the business, leaders in the business, the people that are going to sign that PO. And we have to drive our selling prosecution to all levels of decision makers and either get to directly to, work with the technical user, or find a way to get all of them included into the buying cycle. Pre-proposal, before you do very much else. And that is one of the biggest challenges that many of our salespeople face, is because many of them come from a technical environment, they feel most comfortable talking at the technology level, and they want to talk about things they're most comfortable with, but in reality, as we said earlier, that sale is going to be won or lost of how we can help that customer improve sales, reduce cost, reduce cycle time, improve product quality, or meet some level of compliance. And that, by nature, isn't the area of expertise that that technical user has. I could spend from now until midnight tonight talking about number 1, because that is the single biggest problem that we have in sales. If I were to go through all of your pipeline of opportunities, I could easily make a well-educated hypothesis that 50% of your deals are stalled, and I would bet that almost half of those deals are because you're not talking to the real buyer. You're not talking to the person who has the buying authority. Does anyone care to disagree with that? I'll take you on.
I wouldn't disagree with you. I'm totally with you on this one. The one thing that I've noticed in being involved in this situation is a lot of people, especially people who are new to sales, don't understand that they have to qualify the customer. I mean, it isn't just getting to the customer. It's another way of saying what you're saying. You have to qualify the customer. You have to ask them if there's other people that are involved in the decision-making process.
That's
right.
right.
Somebody else I should be talking to.
That's right.
It's part of the whole process.
It is. When I talk about qualifying, I talk about 2 aspects of qualifying. Situational qualifying, right? Scope, schedule, cost, budget, timing. But I also talk about the organizational qualifying. Who besides yourself is involved in this project? How is it affecting them? And putting together a mechanism to incorporate those other resources into the buying cycle. We call it the 360 assessment, or the 360 approach. Gaining all four 90-degree angles of the constituents early on and assessing their needs and conversing with them pre-proposal. That dialogue will take the shape of number 2. Is it confirmed as a high priority? Is it planned for the next 12 months? Hey, I know that we want to build pipeline, and it's important to build long-term customers so we don't run out of things to do. But I also know that it is a cover-up for not spending time with customers that are close to close. I'll state that better. That many times our salespeople will spend too much time with customers that are not buying today or this year. And will cultivate them instead of really spending the quality time that they have working with customers that have a need and they need to buy this year or in the next 12 months. Yes?
What if they have an unrecognized need, like everything is going along and they think it's fine, but then you present to them a solution that makes it so much better, so they don't even know they have a problem. So how does that fit with your high priority and next plan next week?
We'll talk through that.
Okay.
That is a great question. In most cases, it's understanding your product, how that product applies to a customer segment, and being able to ask those questions when you're meeting with that decisioning authority. So they may ask you a question around cycle time, but if your structured questions in your assessment approach ask questions around all 5 business objectives, you will uncover and actually change their evaluation criteria of how they should buy this product. It's a great question.
I think it's what you just said is very, very important. It's the difference between business development and really pursuing pursuits, actually. It's much more comforting just to get involved in the business development cycle because there is no pressure there. I'm building the relationship, and nobody's asking, I'm not asking for the order, they're not asking me to do something, as opposed to be really trying to drive and close the sales within 12 months.
It's exactly right. There is a fear of failure in all of us where we want to be busy, we want to be talking about deals, we want to be talking about opportunities. And many times it's difficult to break from a conversation with a potential customer that has a need that's not close to the timeline and put that off or put a mechanism in place to satisfy that need at a different time. So staying close to close is an extremely important point. I tend to say that we all know this, nothing happens until something is sold. When something is sold, referrals come, momentum comes, the next deal comes from that sold deal. We all know that 70% of the deals that you'll be seeing in the next 24 to 36 months will come from the referral. The referral basis is the highest. So it would make common sense to be able to close early, get a deal, get it won, get that customer happy, and get that referral, and use that referral as the next pipeline instead of other indirect approaches. That's number 2. Number 3 is scope, schedule, and cost aligned with your client's decision-making team and timeframes. Meaning that many times it's a client will have expressed a need, they will have something going on, but if we're not aligning scope, if we're too big or too small, or the return on investment doesn't pay back in the timeline that they're looking for, or we're just not affordable, or we haven't created a financing approach to make it affordable, deals will be lost. We've all seen where we built the Titanic, right? Customers asked us to do something, we've over-engineered it, we've done some great things, we've built the microwave, right? The microwave is my favorite over-engineered product, right? There's so many buttons and so many things you can do with the microwave, but all of us only know how to do one thing. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 4 minutes. We don't make popcorn or do fondue in it, we just build it and run it that way. So over-engineering a solution is a common thing, and being able to align the solution to the stated business objectives, the timing and budget is a very important factor. Again, these are things that have to be done pre-proposal. Number 4, and I get challenged on this one, legal and procurement terms and conditions. Everyone says, Joe, you got that wrong, that belongs down here. Right? That belongs last, right? We want to get the deal sold, then work with legal in terms. Why is that a mistake? Can anyone tell me why that's a mistake?
You spent all that time and it's going to go, if they kill the deal, the time's lost.
Number 1, the most obvious. Any other thoughts?
If you don't know them up front, you can't address them when you present to the person.
Exactly. It is an interesting mechanism by bringing into your process the questions and the ability to want to talk to legal and procurement, because that is where this guy or gal lives, the financial analysis person. So many times what happens is we build this great proposal, they tell us it's great, we're gonna buy it, it's just gotta go through PO, it's just gotta go through legal procurement, and then all of a sudden, legal and procurement come back with financial questions, they want discounts, they want different breakdown of the solution, and they basically try to separate it apart and sometimes ruin the buying case and ruin the ROI. So by bringing them in early and incorporating them in with the decision-making team, you're able to converse with them along with the other buyers, the technical buyer, the business buyer, to support a conversation that legal is part of and into. So you basically take someone that usually wears the black hat, tries to support your deal, and you put the white hat on them and incorporate them into the deal. That's why we want to do that early on.
Joe, before you leave here, there's no yes/no answer to this. But if I'm selling a product that's 500,000, 2.5 million, I'm gonna negotiate something. It's just inevitable. But if I'm selling a product or service that's 1,000 or 2,000, personally, I would have a tendency to say, these are the terms. I'm not gonna make money if I negotiate each one of those. Can you respond to where you should negotiate? Any guidelines as to where you should negotiate and where you should just, that's it, it's good business and bad business.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it that, but.
It's a great question, but what's interesting is we've automatically tied a relationship between size of deal and negotiating down terms and conditions. Why is it that a smaller item we should be less flexible on, and a larger one we should be more flexible on? What that would mean is that we build some fat into the bigger one, right? I don't believe anyone of us really do that. I don't think any of us really go out there and over-engineer or load cost in something because of price on the bigger deal. So the reality is, in many instances, reducing price off the bigger, more complex project will hurt you more because there's higher risk in there, there's delivery risk, and the things that you take out of them are labor costs or materials costs, and that makes that project much more risky and harder to deliver and many times fail. So by negotiating price down because it's a bigger project, sometimes is a recipe for danger, simply by using that approach. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but somebody buying a $2 million product may make some demands, but I was more interested at the low end, which is closer to here, which is basically, if you're selling a product or service for $2,000, and you spend 2 or 3 days negotiating the terms of the agreement, you don't have any problem with that, because you just ate up all your gross margin. That's where I mean, at the low end, there's only so much time you can before you turn negative on that deal.
I think what you're saying, Joe, is that really you don't want to necessarily negotiate. You need to be aware of those terms before you start to be too long down the road over here. If you expect to sell $1,000 product, saying you're going to have 30% down payment and 70% net 30, and if the other party is saying that there is no down payment possible, then you need to know that before you go further down the road.
Let me say this. In both cases, the inoculator to the problem is gaining legal terms and conditions before you begin developing your business case, before you begin putting together your proposal, so that now that you've met the beast, and you understand those terms and conditions, you understand that part of what they do is beat you up on price, then you're able to afford for that and plan for that in how you construct your proposal. Or decide to move on, right? I've had great deals where in multi-million-dollar projects where the revenue was unbelievably great. And when we got down and we met with legal terms and conditions, they imposed so much risk, so much cost cutting, that it really didn't make sense to do that deal. Sure, if we did the projection, we would see a lot of revenue, and we would see more cost and more risk, and actually lose money on that deal. So I always simply say, let's understand legal terms and conditions as early in the cycle as we can, pre-proposal. That way, we're able to afford for whatever happens. So whether you cut costs early or not, you're planning